You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Monday, May 13th. Today was the final day of 49ers rookie mini camp. But we've got more than that to talk about today. So I'm excited to be joined once again by my Monday co-host here, Weston Smith. Weston, did you enjoy your Aruba vacation, man?
Yeah. I mean, come on now. A week away from reality, shut the world out, spend some time with the wife and the kiddos, and most importantly, for two young children, very, very, very well behaved on the airplane down there. Short answer, Steph. Exactly what the doctor ordered. My lone heartache related to it is I had to miss another Monday on you, but I'm glad you had me back this week.
Yeah, and we may do, I did have someone on last week, Brian Smith from Locked On Seminoles. If you guys haven't checked that out, that was a good show because we talked about Renardo Green and just how he fits into San Francisco. So that was a good show. But I did miss you, Weston. So glad you are here back with us today. And yeah, Technic She says Weston looks relaxed. I mean, hey, it's crazy what a vacation could do for us, right? I mean, so good to have you back. But look, let's get to some new news that came out a little bit ago. I mean, we had here. Let me fix this here. I'm still tinkering with the overlays because there we go. Okay. We've got some news that maybe impacts Brock Purdy and his extension for next off season, right? Jared Goff gets a 4-year, $212 million contract extension with the Lions. That includes $170 million guaranteed per Adam Schefter of ESPN. That's a lot of money. And I'm not here to say like whether or not he deserves it because, I think he did a great job, kind of helping turn things around for the Lions and turning his career around as well in the process. But, what I find interesting here is that I do kind of feel like this is a good floor for Brock Purdy, and I'll just give a couple of reasons why. I mean, obviously, Jared Goff's veteran, all these things. You could look at some of the stats he put up. Some are comparable to Brock Purdy's numbers this season. But, I would still say Brock Purdy is probably, the better quarterback between the two today, right? And also, I think Brock Purdy, younger, heading into his first extension, probably going to get that at some point next season. Talk about ceiling and all that gibberish. I just think this is a good floor for Brock Purdy, I think. And it's May 13th of 2024. Next year, 2025, May 13th, we'll probably be talking about Brock Purdy getting an extension and still waiting for that to happen. There's going to be many more extensions for quarterbacks. Well, I don't know about many more, but there'll be probably a couple more before next offseason, before Brock Purdy is due to get his. So the number is going to continue to go up, right? But I think Jared Goff here provides a good floor just for some of the reasons that I mentioned. What say you, Weston?
What say you? I say 40 is the new 30, Steph. 42 and a half is the old $30 million quarterback. It's no surprise it's going up, it's going up, it's going up. It's going to continue to go up. This is one of those scenarios where I know the 49ers would much rather get out ahead of this contract and wish they had the ability to extend Brock this offseason. Legally speaking, by the terms of the collective bargaining agreement, they cannot. But it would be prudent for them to get this done in, say, April or May of 2025 and not our traditional late July, early August of 2025, because that's just going to introduce more complications, more extensions, going to raise the the floor and the floor or the ceiling, depending upon how Brock plays this year. My one disagreement that I'll have with you, Steph, is I don't actually believe that Brock Purdy is a better quarterback than Jared Goff right now. Do I think he has the ability to be better? Yes. I just still think Brock has very limited sample size, albeit very nice, what we've seen over the last like season and a half, essentially, of him as the starting quarterback. And Jared Goff's just got more under his belt. He too has played in the Super Bowl. He was supposed to be a bridge quarterback, and now he's getting a $212 million extension. Like, weren't we told when this guy was run out of town in LA and Matthew Stafford was brought in, like, he's washed. He's washed. And the skill's always been there. The talent's always been there. There's a reason he was drafted number 2 overall. And to your point, I'm not here to argue whether he deserves or doesn't deserve the money. It's just the next man up, but meaning contractually speaking, not next man up in terms of like replacing an injured player. And whoever the next extension or the rework's going to be, this is the baseline. If you're a top tier or a top 15 quarterback by pretty much everybody's standards in the league, it just stacks like dominoes. And, we'll probably see Brock Purdy with some creative contract somewhere in the range of $45 to $50 million a year guaranteed. That's just what it's going to be by the time the contracts come through.
So let me just ask you about that part where you said you think Jared Goff is the better quarterback right now. Because you did follow that by saying he has a larger sample size. So are you just saying from the standpoint of sample size, from a team perspective of who do I want to invest in, the guy with the larger sample size or the guy who is, done similarly but has a smaller sample size? Like, is that how you're looking at it? Or are you just looking at what they've done in their careers? I'm just curious.
No, I'm not taking I think for Jared Goff, I'm taking in the entire body of work because it is more. But I'm saying it's a guy who has I think he has a stronger arm and better arm talent than Brock Purdy does. I think because he is this savvy veteran who is now experienced with 2 teams, a really bottom of the league roster that has ascended and playing for Sean McVay in LA. I think that as he's matured and his experience has been gathered, the game has slowed down for him. I don't think it's an accident that he's playing better in Detroit than he did in LA. I think he's getting an opportunity to flash more based on the design of the offense. Let me clarify this with your real question here, Steph.
Please.
If I'm investing $230 million into a quarterback this afternoon, I'm putting it in Brock Purdy. I'm not putting it in Jared Goff. What I'm saying is that where they are right now, like, yes, and that's unfair because Brock only has a year and a half of starting and Jared Goff has 6-7 years starting in the league. I understand it's a unfair comparison, but as of this conversation right now, I still think Jared Goff is a better quarterback and I do expect Brock Purdy to ascend that with time, with comfort, with the game slowing down. I think that'll all come for him. And when all's said and done, he will be the better quarterback with a better NFL career, making a larger contract. But as this conversation right now, and we're splitting hairs. I don't even know what my quarterback ranking is. But if I had Brock Purdy at 11, I'm making this up, right? I would have Goff at 10 or 9, right? But that's just my belief.
No, that's totally fair. I was just wondering.
Throw me under the bus of these crazy 49er fans. I'm about to get canceled as of 7-Eleven.
Cut this clip and just put that part right there. No other context that you added, just the part where Weston said Jared Goff is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. That's it. That's all I'm going to share. But no, I actually had a conversation last week. I was on Mariah's channel, and those of you subscribed to the YouTube, maybe I've tuned in and seen that. But we did talk about, there's different rankings for quarterbacks and things like that. And so one of the recent ones, or there was a comment from just a media person that said that 15 other quarterbacks could do what Brock Purdy's done with this 49ers team. Or do better than what he's done. And so we went down the list of like all of the quarterbacks in the NFL, and I think I came down to, I think it was about 12. It ended up being like 12 guys that I would say like yes, they could do the same or better with San Francisco. I don't think Jared Goff was one of them, to be quite honest with you. Well, you know what? I might have said he could do the same. That might have been the thing with Goff. I probably was like, yes, he could do the same. I don't know if he'd be better. I don't know if he is better, but Weston, I respect your opinion, and I, as far as just the comfort level that Goff has grown to in the league, definitely has grown. I mean, that playoff game against the Niners, that was the most comfortable I think I've seen him be playing against the Niners in his entire career. And that says a lot because the 49ers defense is scary, especially when you've had some bad games against them in the past. So
Yep.
I'll give him that. I'll give him that one. So other things that wanted to discuss with you today, my friend. Nick Sorensen, 49ers new defensive coordinator. And just got to fix this again. He had a presser with the media last week. I know you were on vacation, but I don't know if you got a chance to check that out during your travels. I mean, who wouldn't want to tune in to a 49ers presser in the middle of the vacation?
Riveting stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Especially Nick Sorensen, right? So I'm sure, in all seriousness, I'm sure you did get the chance to check that out since you've come back. So what were your first thoughts on Nick Sorensen and just how he looked, how he answered questions in his very first presser as defensive coordinator?
Okay. So I did see this while I was in Aruba. Again, young children who went to bed early. I was able to sneak in actually New York Ranger games and other things while away, by the way, which is going on right now. So nobody spoil anything in the comments. That being said, I came away, this is going to sound funny. I came away from Sorensen's press conference feeling very underwhelmed, but not surprised. And what I mean by that was like, what did we talk about leading into them making a decision? And I was like, I don't even care who, just make the decision, right? And they landed on who, quite candidly, is someone that Kyle Shanahan is going to be able to control and control the narrative around it. Sorry, Nick Sorensen, but if the defense does not play well in the eyes of your superiors, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, etc., you are getting dragged under the bus faster than you can ever imagine. And because it's not an outside personality with somebody who has a ton of experience in the league, a la Steve Wilkes, that becomes easier to do to build the scapegoat. And why I feel even more emphatic and comfortable around it being Kyle's choice, probably above and beyond, was just a lot of the things you heard him talking about, like continuity and consistency and not changing many things in the league, like the league's evolving. We're going to just evolve. What I'm hearing is like, we're going back to 2022, 2021, what those defenses look like under D'Amico, under Saleh. I think you're going to see more of those alignments. I don't think you'll see some new age like variations and probably some blitzing techniques, et cetera, because I don't think this defensive line is good enough to get pressure with just 4 anymore, the way they did in the past. But I like Nick Sorensen. This is nothing against him. I do like the hire because I was for this level of consistency and keeping it in-house, but that's what it amounts to. Like, this is Kyle's defensive puppet. And again, that's not a knock on Nick at all. I think he's earned probably every opportunity as a player to even get to this point as a coach, but it just felt like you could see the headlines now, right? Like, if things are going wrong, like, this is somebody that honestly they'd pull the trigger and remove in the middle of the season, not even bat an eye about it if they felt like they had to.
That's interesting. I do feel like there's a lot still being figured out, maybe internally, with how the defense is going to work, with how the relationship between Nick Sorensen and Brandon Staley is going to work. I felt like everything we've heard about Brandon Staley so far has been somewhat vague. I mean, we still don't know what his actual title is going to be. But I was listening to the Tim K podcast. He had Matt Barrows on for the 49ers Plus Minus show. They were at 49ers rookie minicamp on Friday because that was the day that was open to the media. They did mention, Brandon Staley. He was with the DBs quite a bit. That was kind of his focus. So they just speculated that maybe he'll have a similar role to. I want to say they were just kind of speculating that maybe he would have a similar role to what Nick Sorensen had last year, which is interesting, I guess. The passing and what that role is actually I think pass game specialist or something like that. I'll zoom in here. Interesting enough. Defensive passing game specialist and Nichols coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
I took the screenshot today, by the way. Nick Sorensen still listed as the defensive passing game specialist and Nichols coach. They have not updated his job title on 49ers.com if you look at the coaches for whatever reason. And they haven't officially announced like Brandon Staley's hiring, which because he's an assistant, I don't know if they would do, but I found this very interesting. Very interesting, to say the least, that he hasn't been, I guess, formally made the defensive coordinator on the website.
I don't want to say it's laughable. I want to say that this is not a mistake that teams like commonly make. I just think it's that like in passing, like the decision was like, hey, hire Nick and we move on, right? And we move on. I mean, why else didn't this guy get airtime with the press? Well, I mean, when was this announced? 2 months ago, right? That Nick Sorensen was going to be the defense coordinator.
Long time.
This is the first time. Like that guy's in the office every single day in the off season. That's what they do. And you're going to tell me that like this is the first time he's media available is like during rookie mini camp. They're going to shield him. They're going to make him cushy. I think Brandon Staley is absolutely in the ear, behind the scenes, going to have far more influence than any of us are probably even expecting out of the gate. But I think it's going to be more about get this back to the way we used to do it. And if you don't, we have no problem parting ways with you. And we'll pull that trigger sooner than you can imagine. And oh, by the way, we have your replacement already in-house who's also sitting here without a title but collecting a paycheck.
See, I don't know if I love that though, because that's what everyone speculated, right? When the 49ers made this hiring to begin with, and not only the Sorensen hiring, but it was like, oh wait, we also have this guy too. So
yeah,
just so you guys know. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. It's unorthodox. You kind of just I've been very, I guess, optimistic that it would somehow work out and, Staley could be just a mentor to Nick Sorensen. But I don't know. It's very interesting because in hearing some of Nick Sorensen's answers to things, some of it was pretty vague, which I don't know if that's strategic in any way. I don't know if it's him just being nervous, his first time with the media. Maybe he's not very comfortable with it. So he's, just says the first thing that comes to mind and then stops it right there, doesn't elaborate. But you mentioned something that I kind of took away as well from Nick Sorensen, that it's like, yeah, we're going to go back to being the same defense that we have been. And at the same time, he was also saying, or just, he also mentioned that with Brandon Staley, that they're taking in feedback from Staley and kind of deciding, well, this might work for us, this might not. Do you worry that may at some point cause some kind of, I guess, like rift between the two, of like if Nick Sorensen thinks something Brandon Staley has proposed just would not work with this defense, and like, I don't know, I just feel like for two guys that have not worked together before, to then be placed in a room and essentially having different ideas and philosophies for what this defense could be. Like, I feel like there could be some tension at some point. I hope not, right? But that's the risk you take of having two guys kind of unofficially sharing a room.
Yeah. I mean, too many cooks in the kitchen is always a bad thing, in my opinion, right? I don't worry about it because I think it ultimately boils down like, okay, behind the scenes, whatever this loose agreement is that we don't know by title, who's got predominant say. And based on the two individuals that we're talking about, it's Kyle, right? So it's like whichever one of those opinions he agrees with, that's fact. That's gospel at that moment in time. And it really doesn't matter what the two of them. Here's what I'll say, because I too am optimistic. And I'm optimistic, Steph, because you know what? Once upon a time, Robert Saleh was just a guy, right? Who was given a chance. Once upon a time, D'Amico Ryans was just a guy who was given a chance, who had zero experience at the coordinator position. Same, like I said, with Robert Saleh. Last I checked, those are two head coaches in the NFL right now that boasted some good, solid defenses, top defenses in the league. Yes, loaded with talent and great players, but the scheme was there, the passion was there, the fire was there, the energy was there. So if Sorensen can just duplicate some of those things, and oh, by the way, most importantly, he's clearly going to be down on the field. This is not even a question. So, like, it's already checking those boxes. But if that fire and that passion's still there, maybe Nick is no longer just a dude, right? Like, he's just another guy. And listen, the NFL is littered with uber talented players and uber talented coaches that get passed over and overlooked time and time and time and time again. Maybe he's one of those guys. We don't know. But I'm choosing to remain optimistic because we've seen this unfold with two of his predecessors before.
Yeah, and we'll see how it works out. I'm cautiously optimistic about it. So hopefully it isn't the cause for tension along the way. Hopefully the 49ers don't feel like they need to make a midseason firing. That would not be ideal. That's the sign of something gone wrong. But we'll continue to assess the situation. This is, of course, our first look in first time hearing Nick Sorensen. So, and I'll just say, like, him speaking to the media, him maybe being a little nervous, maybe not so comfortable, that doesn't take away from the type of coach he is, which, by the way, we don't really know what kind of coach he is. The players know. As long as he's the kind of coach that these players need, that's all that matters. So I don't care if he's like quiet or non-elaborative at the podium. That's fine. I don't care if he never gets comfortable in the podium, as long as he's a good coach. That's it.
I'm not in the press room, so he's not boring me to sleep, right? So I'm results. This is a result-driven league. That's all that matters.
Exactly. Well, let's get to the next thing here. So, before we do that, did you catch any of the stuff from rookie minicamp? Again, like the media was only allowed there on Friday. It ended today. So between that, there were a few days that we didn't get any news on what happened there. But of course, just the one day, there's some overreactions, there's normal reactions, underreaction. I don't know. Like, what were you able to follow any of that? Did anything stand out to you in those reports?
Of course. I mean, Steph, there's one thing, like, even when the rest of my life shuts down, this function in my brain can't, right? Like, the stuff you see on your walls and my walls and behind us, like that, just like I literally can't turn it off. So I did. I would say, I would caution the listeners, just like you kind of just did, like, keep in mind, these are 60-minute practices with no pads and 7-on-7, right? And you're going to see the same thing every year. Like, your first, your second, your third round guys, like, they're cruising. Like, they're on the team. Like, it doesn't matter. They're making the 53, no big deal. What I more look for is, like, how are the undrafted guys competing, right? And the lower drafted ones competing, because I want to know who came in prepared to take advantage of every opportunity, because for some of them, this might be the only opportunity they are given to showcase any semblance of a skill set. And again, it's very limited. But yeah, like I caught the, Ricky Pearsall can't get off the line. That was the narrative, blah, blah, blah. Like, honestly, Ricky Pearsall is damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, like until you see him in pads and in a real game, because a first round pick that many people didn't want to, don't want to agree with by position, by player, by whatever it is. You will never tell in one practice if this guy, because is he going to add a jolt to the offense now and be the long-term replacement there? Like based on like Friday's report, you'd say no, like he might not even make the 53. Like that's how the sky is falling, but for other people, like Drake Nugent, an opportunity to get your name out there and say, God, I'm lucky we're lucky we brought this guy in, or the running back from Missouri. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on that. Yeah, Schrader. Again, just little opportunities, but this is just tough. Like nobody has ever made a roster or won the Super Bowl from rookie minicamp. They're not even most of the guys that they're competing against at this camp are probably not going to find an NFL roster this year. It's just the nature of the beast. So I would say far more overreaction on like, oh my God, Jacob Cowing is the best thing since sliced bread. Like the one thing I will say, Steph, is at least the people who are reporting on what they see are saying what I told you when we drafted Renardo Green. I said, he is the guy that will crack the lineup. This is what he does. And that's exactly what again, 7-on-7s, no pads in a short window, but he showed that dog. He showed that aggressiveness, which is either going to make his career or break his career in the NFL because of, the physicality in which he plays, but he's going to be given every opportunity to be a starter right out of the gate. And I'm just excited about that, because that was literally what I came out and said, like, this guy is going to be one of the impact players that they're walking away from the draft with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the same. I think a couple guys I think have a legit shot at getting some opportunities this year. Now let me ask you this, because on Friday, as I did a show on Friday, which I don't normally do, but because it was that day of rookie mini camp, I said, why not? Right. So on that day, as the reports were flooding in from different media members about rookie mini camp, their recaps and all of that, sometimes the recaps overlap. Like sometimes they say the same things or similar things where you can, I don't know if I'm using the right word, corroborate what happened. Sometimes, there's differences between what some people say. So how do you, as a fan, take in that information of these different types of reports? Because, I mean, as a fan, like, we get that stuff all the time where it's like, and if there's one person that you follow closely more than the other, I'm talking about like media member, you might be more biased to what, X reporter says versus Y reporter, all that. I'm trying to get fans to break away from that, because that's how you get into just like one train of thought and perception in all of this. How do you kind of look at all that information, if you do at all?
I do. I absolutely do. I love public opinion. I think that's one of the best things about like this medium in general, whether it's the written word, spoken word, through your podcast, whatever, is I love opinions. And then what's one of the things that I love about football and love about people is like we just all see things through a different lens. So I think it's fair. I think it's realistic to get contradictory reports on people, because I think everybody watches something just from different experience, different whatever. So what I gravitate towards, and I'm not here to name drop, but I gravitate towards people who I just feel like have watched the game in a similar manner that I do, right? Like see the same things or value, and that comes with time. That comes with like years of following a lot of these people in terms of just like, And that doesn't mean I blindly agree with them, like Steph, I love you, but I told you flat out, like, I think Jared Goff's better than Brock Purdy. Like, that's how we started the show. I can't even believe I'm still on air right now with you. Like, then you call me a friend 2 minutes later. I was like, oh, she still likes me. Okay. But seriously, I think that's what makes what we do so great. But I do, to answer your question more directly, I will tend to err on the side of the people that I have consistently followed because I think they see football the same way that I do, or they value the same traits for their football team, or just have a realistic approach of like, at this time of year for rookie minicamp, we think every draft pick was a home run, right? It's either they're a home run or a big swing and a miss. And the reality is it's somewhere in between. And how do you decipher like what that person's going to become or ultimately could become? I mean, I saw a comparison of Jacob Cowing to Julian Edelman. Like, what are we doing here? What? Like, what? It's May. This dude has not even played a down of professional football in the NFL. Like, but that's the name of the game, right? Like, that's the comparison of it. So I totally like I said, I love public opinion. Love it. I think it's just like one of the best things offered out there. But I am very careful about who I pull from that helps support or contradict my actual opinion.
Yeah, that's important too, because sometimes we have our own biases. And when we read something that we think confirms that bias, we kind of latch on to that one report, right? But again, I think it's important to cross-check. Technic, she says, great question. By the way, Steph, figuring out best how to sort of sort these reports out, take in different pieces of information can be important. Absolutely. That's kind of what I try to do in these last 2 years, especially when I experienced it at training camp, because I'm there and I'm seeing it and I'm like, wait, this is how I perceived that. You're saying something completely different. That's when I noticed, like, God, like, this is a thing, right? And it's natural. I think, like you said, people's different experiences, people's different perceptions are going to lead them to see things different ways, all that, right?
Yep.
So I'm just like, take in as much information as you feel you need to in order to get like a good lay of the land of what actually happened. And I know that seems, I guess, kind of like time consuming. God, I don't have time to like watch all these people's podcasts and see what they have to say about it. Almost every time these reporters will tweet out like a recap of the day if they were there, right?
Yep.
So that's what I latch on to. I don't watch everyone's like podcast, but I will just at least read the high level notes of the day. So if you could at least do that, that's what I would recommend to fans.
And I would say, like, listen, you're fans. Like, we're fans, right, Steph? Like, that's why we're even here in the first place. I would say, like, align yourself to think of the type of fan you want to be and what information it is you want. And there's somebody out there for you. And like Steph, you said, over these last 2.5 years where you've just been grinding and opening so many doors for you and getting so much more exposure, your thought on football has changed. I don't care if you say it has, right? Like, it is your perception of how you view the team, how you approach your daily activity related to covering the 49ers has changed. Like, again, I'm not big on name dropping, but like Javi, we all know Javi. Anybody who's following, right? Like, I think I'm honestly, he was my favorite. I think he was the best to do it. And he'll tell you over years, getting that exposure, it hardened him as a fan. Like, he almost lost his fandom because it became a business. So as a 49er fan, like, if you like are truly trying to decipher, here's the first thing everybody needs to know. Nobody's 100% right. If they were, facts, right? There'd be one person covering the team and doing that stuff. And the truth is they're not. And then think of the team you follow. Coaches, GMs, everybody, they all swing and miss. Everybody swings and misses. So like, who do you want to go out on the branch with, whether they hit a home run or they miss, is like how you really need to align and decipher through who's giving you fact and who's giving you fiction.
Listen, I wanted to ask you, just because, it's something I've been thinking about these last few days, and something I was like running into on Friday, literally the first day of any practice of this season. Like, it already happens. So
Absolutely.
I'm sure, I'll send out another reminder around training camp that, hey, just not everyone's going to have the same opinion on what they see. So, all right. Well, the last thing I wanted to go over, and this isn't like super breaking, but, Ross Dwelley, former 49ers tight end. He was a free agent, this offseason, as was Charlie Warner. Ross Dwelley did sign with the Atlanta Falcons, as did Charlie Warner. and if you guys recall, Charlie Warner signed with the Falcons earlier this offseason.
Big contract.
Yeah, it was 3 years, $12 million. Ross Dwelley signed with them today, or at least that came out today. I don't know for how much, but it's kind of crazy to see like both of those guys end up going to the Falcons. Good for them, I guess. But, when it comes to the 49ers, I mean, I think we look at the 49ers tight end depth, and after George Kittle, it's very questionable. We still don't know what Cameron Latu is. We still don't know what Braden Willis is. I mean, it's kind of something we've been harping on like all off season, right?
Yep.
And they didn't address it in the draft. They did pick up Mason Pline as an undrafted free agent after the draft. And, some people did say he looked good at Everett and minicamp, so I'm going to stick to that because that fit my narrative. But I still, I'm not feeling great about just the tight end position. I was really expecting Ross Dwelley actually to re-sign with the 49ers, quite honestly. I thought the 49ers would kind of get to that point, and maybe after the draft, they would be like, oh, well, we didn't really address tight end 2. Let's just bring Ross Dwelley back. And maybe they would have. Maybe they were just sitting on their hands a little bit on making that decision. But, I mean, that's not an option anymore. So, how are you feeling about the 49ers tight end situation at this point, post-draft, post-free agency? Like, are you comfortable with where they're at? Is there anything you think they can do to maybe solidify it any further for 2024?
I mean, I'm comfortable as long as George Kittle can play in all 17 games, and I just don't think that's reality. I've been saying for 2-3 years that like George is the kind of guy who can just up and walk away from this game at any time he wants, and he'll have a professional career like the WWE, making more money and more popularity. So like he's that guy, right? Like he's, National Tight Ends Day is because of George Kittle. But I don't feel great about the position. I feel like they've had to address this for a while. I don't think Dwelley was really ever going to come back. I like the dangling the carrot that there was maybe an opportunity because he's played for us for so long and done so much. Like I know the graphic said 17 starts, but this dude darn near played in every single game so long as he was healthy. Like, I mean, I remember when he used to even sub in for Juice, right? Like just being that kind of that H-back and multi-position player. I wonder what the Falcons are void of talent, right? Like, and I do think Ross Dwelley is a good football player. They need help everywhere, in my opinion. I just wonder if this is like one of those things, because you see this all the time, right? Like when people leave, or like, did we lose somebody on like the player development side that like nobody's talked about and is like wound up in Atlanta and was like, hey, you got to go. You want to chat with these two guys, right? Like I think with Charlie Warner and with Ross Dwelley, just because they have experience, they're now league veterans. They both block, they've proven that they can catch the ball in times of need. They've just never been a target. And Kirk Cousins loves playing with a tight end. So I don't know how Michael Penix feels about it, but we'll see.
It's not like they don't have Kyle Pitts already. Maybe use him.
He's a wide receiver. Like Kyle Pitts is not blocking anybody in line for you anytime.
I digress. Okay, so up on the screen, I do have the best remaining free agent tight ends. This list is very uninspiring. Logan Thomas, who has had a short stint with the 49ers in the past. Robert Tonyan, who a couple years ago for the Packers looked intriguing. Like he looked like something. Best friends with George Kittle. I see him as maybe being the best option on this list. Then you have Jimmy Graham, who's like how is he still playing? Respect to him. Trevin Wesco, respectfully, haven't heard of him. Jeff Swaim, Mercedes Lewis, Nick Vanette, Bryson Hopkins. I mean, I'm looking at this list and I'm like, yeah, if 49ers don't sign another tight end, like, it makes sense. Because this list, you might as well just see what Cam Latu and Braden Willis can develop into this season, I guess.
Well, we can cross Vanette off the list because apparently, as of a couple hours ago, he agreed to a term with the Tennessee Titans. And the only reason why I know that is because I was just Googling, because I was going to say, hey, let's go after Vanette. But I was like, wait a minute, he wasn't a Seahawk as recent as last year. I was like, I just would love to just like have somebody who's been inside that locker room against a division rival, like if they're, to whatever advantage that might play. But I agree with you on Tunyon 2-3 years ago. Like I wanted that guy bad on this team, right? Like he just reminded me so much of our 85, right? Like just his ability. But I think now you've made your bed. You got to hope that Willis or Latu, like one of them pops, or you got to go find somebody who doesn't make a 53 and steal somebody, a young rookie or somebody who's been in the league a year or two that's going to be sitting on somebody's practice squad. Like you got to do it. There's got to be more competition at the position than exists right now.
That's a good point. That's definitely still an option for them. My guess is, they probably wait until what's it called? Until OTAs, see what these guys look like, after the off season, see who's put on some weight, who's just like looking like they progressed between year 1 and year 2, between Latu and Willis, and then just go from there. But there is a lot of time, Weston, between now and I guess like scramble mode. I don't think that clearly they're not in scramble mode yet. Otherwise, we probably would have seen them make another move. We probably would have seen them prioritize tight end in the draft. So clearly they don't see it as a big deal right now.
No, they definitely don't. But that's our job, right? But the good news is here, we're here complaining about like, hey, we don't have a succession plan or a backup plan, if you will, for the tight end 2 position on the team, right? I think most fan bases are not worried about who their tight end 2 is. They're more like, who's the quarterback? Who's wide receiver 1? Who's edge 1? Like, so it's first world problems, right? For lack of a better term that we're looking at right now.
That's true. I know. We're over here worried about depth. Yeah. That's where we're at. Because, but those are the things that matter when you're trying to make a Super Bowl run, right? It's just it's the little things. The little things are the big things. So all right. Now we have the schedule release coming out Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. We know who the 49ers opponents are this season, right? Home and away opponents. Now, if you had to just guess what the week 1 opponent for the 49ers would be, or if you have a preference, maybe not a guess, but if there's one that you're like, God, I want to play them in week 1. Have you thought about that? And don't say the Chiefs or the Cowboys, because those are off the table. Those have already been announced. They're playing other teams in week 1, but we still have some pretty intriguing games on the table here. So any that intrigue you?
Yeah. I'll give you a guess and a preference. I'll start with my preference. My preference would be actually to get a divisional game out of the way week 1. Don't really care who it is. I just want to see, I think it's an opportunity to set the tone with the division like early, right? I just think that's an opportunity, and depending upon which one of these teams, maybe it's a low-hanging fruit, as they're going through roster churn to start the season 1-0. You always want to start with some momentum. My guess is it's probably going to be the New York Jets, because I think about like 4:00 time slot, most likely, right? That's what I say on the East Coast here. Probably most likely going to open with a home game because of the way the NFL will want to stack, like who's got what. It would probably be the Fox game of the week if I had to guess. And I think the best who you probably want to slot in there. I mean, you might want Detroit because, God, what a game. By the way, that was on over the weekend, and I definitively watched that, but then shut it off when they replayed the Super Bowl right after because I'm still not okay enough to go back through that experience. But I think the Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers story has been compelling, especially how the 49ers have had Green Bay's number and his number specifically in the playoffs, rebounding from the Achilles, put a prime opponent in front of them. I think the NFL would do well from a viewership standpoint if it was the Jets at the 49ers in week 1.
So you think it'll be a primetime game?
No, I just think it'll be the Fox game of the week, right? Like meaning that'll be the 4:00 spotlight game. I don't think they'll get Sunday night or Monday night.
So the game of the week was the Dallas and Browns game.
That's Friday, yeah. That's on Friday, isn't it?
For week 1.
Yeah.
That's for week 1.
I think that's the first time they've ever done that. I don't remember a Friday game.
Is it on Friday?
Yeah, that's what I thought I saw. I thought I saw it was Thursday and then like Friday night.
No, it's Sunday. I just
okay. I don't know what I was reading. I was driving while I was reading it.
But I did see that they do want to have a Friday game in week 1.
In week 1. That's what I thought. Maybe I'm just combining the two things that I read.
Yeah. So yeah. The Cowboys Browns game of the week Sunday. Tom Brady will be making his commentating debut as well, or his broadcasting debut. I don't know if he's going to be commentating, but he's going to be part of the broadcast team for Fox. Okay, if Jets was an interesting one. I definitely like. It's not sexy, but it's intriguing nonetheless. Like there are of course still some connections there. Robert Saleh, 49ers now with a new defensive coordinator again. Aaron Rodgers coming back, right? There's some things that could spice that one up. My thing is like I feel like the 49ers never get good week 1 games. It pisses me off. Like I don't know.
It's been Pittsburgh. It's been
it's so boring.
Was it Tampa one year?
Wasn't it Bears like some years ago too?
Yeah, I think 19. In 19 it was Tampa.
Why do we always play the Bears? I feel like we played the Bears a lot in
recent we got the North, right? We have the North next year. So we have the North and we have the NFC North and then the AFC East.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my week 1 favorite option would be playing the Lions. I mean, that would just be top tier.
You want to do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Early? I want these teams playing when they're full steam. Week 1 is just like such shaky. I honestly, there's no week that I hate more in the NFL than week 1.
But that's what I thought. And then the 49ers just came out so hot against the Steelers. Like
they did.
I don't know.
They did.
Yeah, so I would go Lions for the entertainment factor. But what I guess my prediction, more realistic. Also, I think it'll be an away game in week 1. Maybe the Bills. Wouldn't that be pretty good?
I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Hey, the Bills in their first game without Stephon Diggs, they got some new wide receivers, but are they going to be on top of the game in their very first week, right? Like they still got some things to figure out. So I wouldn't mind taking the Bills in week 1. Also takes out the possibility of playing the Bills in the winter. So give me that.
So this is how I feel about Buffalo and Green Bay, because if they do play Green Bay early in the season, I'm going, because Lambeau is first and foremost a great experience. I've been there multiple times. It is great. I don't care what team you're a fan of, but both times I've been there have been in January, and I'm not built for that level of coldness. Here's what I will say, Steph, about the schedule. The only thing I actually really care about is during week 2, I will be away on a golf trip with my brother and cousins. So I haven't even booked my flight to this trip. I've done everything else because I am literally waiting to see when we play on week 2, during week 2, so that I know I can be in front of the game. So if it's like a 1:00 start because it's on the East Coast, well, then I'm taking a red eye home from Utah on Saturday night, right from the golf course. Like, that's how I'm. The course, everybody's like, dude, you're out of your mind. I'm like, no, like, this is what's gonna happen. And so I'm just hoping they get like the Monday night game in week 2, or even like the Thursday night game. So while I'm out there, I can at least like set up shop and watch and not miss it. So that's all I'm looking forward to, is determining when I can actually book my flight.
Yeah, I mean, that's some dedication right there.
This is what we do.
Okay, so I'm getting the comment from Steve-O. Steve-O says, he said that Kittle's post meant Rodgers are week 1 QB. And then I was like, what post? He said there's a picture of him and Rodgers, said see you soon. But that could mean anything, right? I mean, they're playing each other this season, so
and it's George Kittle.
I don't think it's George.
So it could literally mean
does like
anything, but I think that's where people read in between the lines a little bit. Like, it's not an off-based opinion, right? But this is how conspiracy theories start, right? You draw a line.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he posted it 7 hours ago on Instagram. So
yep, I saw this too.
Say, see you soon. I hadn't seen it yet, so and if people hadn't seen it yet. All right. I mean, if Kittle knows something that we don't, it could be.
He knows a lot that we don't.
What does he know?
He's got to have a good time, that's for sure.
I'm excited about the schedule release, though. I'll be having my show on Wednesday with Desi. The schedule won't be released, but when we record, but we'll speculate, and by then we might have some more games that have been leaked. So that's always fun, the lead up to the schedule release as well. And I don't know, I have a feeling the 49ers video might be like a good one this year.
Never seems to really favor us. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited about it too.
They'll never get to beat the Chargers, because the Chargers media team is like
elite.
They put all of their resources, all their budgeting, in, I think, into just that one video every year. But it's so worth it. So I am excited to see what the Chargers cook up.
It's well worth the investment when other team fan bases are talking about it, right? And
it's now been like. It's like almost a decade now where they just like crush it. So good for them. Good for them. Get Harbs in there.
Smacking and spitting in the quarterback's mouth.
All the Harbaugh things. There's just so much Harbaugh content.
Iron sharpens iron. That's how it starts out.
It's gonna be so good. And if you could get his dad on there too, like just
absolutely
cherry on top. All right, well, that's our show for today. Make sure you like this video if you haven't yet. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Not just mine, but Weston's as well. We're Talking Football podcast. Steph 49K. And audio listeners, make sure you leave a rating, leave a review, hit that notification bell to know when I go live next. Probably be tomorrow for Bully Bowl on YouTube. Wednesday for all. And with that, have a good rest of your have a good rest of your Monday, folks. I went off script. Like, I don't have an actual script, but I've just memorized what I have to say, and that time I just kind of went rogue and it didn't go well.
Those are the best moments, Steph. The best moments.
From me, from Weston, have a good rest of your Monday, folks. Peace.